JotPsych is the first AI-powered EHR built for therapists. It automatically writes your notes and handles scheduling forms and more. Try it free and get 50% off your first 2 months with code JOE at jotpsych.com. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1312. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice that you absolutely love. We want you to have both sides of that. We want it to thrive. We want you to be thinking through your operations. As you go into the new year, we want you to be setting some goals, some KPIs, key performance indicators as to what growth looks like for you. We want to teach you to take hats off so you're not doing everything and you're really focusing on that zone of genius where you are doing the best work that you can do and handing off the rest to your team. And we want you to love it. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed and stressed. We want you to feel like you're making the impact on the world that you want to make. And so, as we do that with you, we cover all sorts of topics on this show. We're doing this show 5 days a week where we talk about all sorts of issues. We talk about the marketing. We talk about the branding. We talk with clinicians both in the counseling field and outside, which is why I'm so excited to have Dr. Darren Schmidt with me today. Dr. Schmidt is the founder and CEO of Nutritional Healing Center of Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he's practiced exclusively in clinical nutrition since 1998. After nearly dying from a severe health crisis in 2016, Dr. Schmidt unlocked and uncovered and overlooked nutritional and environmental connections, mold exposure, lactic acid, and chronic illness that reshaped his approach to healing. Dr. Schmidt, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you've been in this business a while, and we were just talking about how there's been, with the current administration, with RFK and all of that, there's been a whole shift in thinking around wellness, quote unquote. What are you seeing for good and for bad as it comes through kind of the wellness industry and thinking beyond just the traditional medical model?
It's such a big question. So
start big. Just start big right at the beginning.
Yeah, start big. So it's really two different industries. One is you have symptoms and you squash them with drugs. And if that fails, you end up getting surgery to cut out organs. The other, and it's such a broad statement right there. It might be offensive to some people what I just said, but hear me out. The other industry is using nutritional therapies, and that includes detoxing to improve health. So those are the two industries. Now the health improvement industry, that's what I'm in. And some people call it the wellness industry, whatever. I never use that term. But usually that's a cash-only service. It's outside of the insurance industry. It's in the free market. Nobody is forcing you to go see a wellness type or health improving, naturopath or chiropractor or medical doctor or whatever. And if you're in the insurance realm, which most everybody is, you have to see a certain person first, then you go see another person second, and they send you through the circles of referrals. So, and you're kind of like pigeonholed into that. And if you get a second like a second opinion, you're getting a second opinion from the same person who went through the same sort of training. But a real second opinion would be like, okay, let's improve your health and see what symptoms go away. So we have the same person we're working on, but there's two different goals. One is, here's some medications to help you feel better and make your symptoms go away, pain relief, asthma management, pain management, whatever. Oh, you're depressed, here's an antidepressant. Whereas in wellness, it's like, okay, why are you feeling this way? And it could be a variety of causes. I really focus on what I think there's 10. I think there's 10 causes of most chronic illness. And it could be malnutrition, it could be chronic organisms, toxicity, organ dysfunction. We find out what it is, we fix it up, and then a lot of symptoms start to go away. And we're not targeting symptoms, we're not targeting a disease, we're not even naming diseases. We're looking at why the body's not functioning, and then we improve the function of the cells and the organs so that they feel better.
Now, for your own personal health crisis, tell us about that turning point in your career, and how did that vulnerability change maybe the way you think about performance and resilience?
Yeah, that's another good question. So I was in a moldy office for 13 years, and I didn't know it. And I had terrible heart symptoms, left arm pain, high blood pressure, difficulty breathing. And long story short, like beginning of 2016, I went to urgent care. I ended up going to urgent care twice that year. I got 4 EKGs. I went to the cardiologist twice. And I was going through some old books, old nutrition and medical textbooks that I own, because I was going, visiting all kinds of other healthcare providers with no results. And I found an article from 1958 talking about what's called lactic acidosis. And that's a mechanism of chronic disease. And we now know it as mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, they're two different systems or mechanisms, but they happen at the same time. So in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, they called it lactic acidosis. So anyways, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's what I have. I could see the symptoms, but I knew it was a mechanism, not a cause. So then 9 months later, I found the cause, which is the mold in the office. So knowing about the mechanism really answered a lot of questions I had, like why do people have, for example, depression, fibromyalgia, and a deep ache in their calf muscles, and maybe some anxiety once a month. Like why? And there is one thing behind all of that, that's lactic acidosis, the mechanism. But then the question is, what's the cause? And it could be mold. It could be a gas leak. I had a gas leak last year at my house. Once again, I went to ER, same symptoms, only they were worse. And that was in May of 2024. And I started taking supplements. I took B1. Within 2 weeks, I was 95% better. And I did okay through the summer and fall. And then I found the gas leak December. So another turning point in my career, like, okay, I'm almost dying. Why am I dying? Yeah. Find the cause, fix it. So both of these experiences were really like accelerated my nutritional expertise because I had to save my life.
Yeah. Now, that makes me think of how many high achievers just push through symptoms instead of pausing to listen. Tell me more about when you work with these high-performing individuals, what are things that some of them do that really helps their health, and what are things that they do that really hurts their health?
What really helps their health is when they're studying on their own and they come to me with questions. They saw a video, read an article, and they have an idea, and I can incorporate that maybe, or maybe it doesn't apply. And either way, it helps. Now, what hurts them is when they get sucked into treating symptoms, because symptoms are distracting. And let's say you have some toxicity, you got some mercury or some chemicals in your body. They just sit there day after day causing trouble. And if you have weather can affect your symptoms, or stress, or one bad meal, and then you get these symptoms and you're chasing that symptom. Well, keep in mind, you got these toxins in your body that need to come out. So I'll detox somebody for a year, and like 70% of the symptoms are gone because we got rid of the toxins. Mm. So like symptoms are signposts. They're not what you treat, but they do need to go away when you treat the actual cause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I hear folks talk about working with doctors outside of the traditional Western medicine industry, oftentimes they're having big changes in their diets. They're on a bunch of supplements. Maybe they have to exercise more. Not that any of those things are bad things, but what misconceptions do you think there are about your industry that the average person should know?
The misconceptions about my industry. Well, what I see on social media is, especially with RFK Jr. being in charge of HHS right now, he's making some big radical changes, and I see on social media conventional medical doctors attacking him on everything that he does. And they'll say things like, well, there's no science, or the science that he's quoting is wrong, or he's making up the science. No, the truth is he's right. He's been right. Every change that he's made is correct. And, some people have some emotional hyper responses to a change, right? So one example is Tylenol. And it's been shown that it can be a factor for contributing or causing autism in some kids. And then the solution would be leucovorin, maybe. Leucovorin can help with with folic acid, et cetera. I'm not going to get into the details about that. But leucovorin has made kids start to talk. And when the mom stops giving the leucovorin, they don't talk anymore. So there is a thing there. There's something there. But, Tylenol doesn't cause all autism, and there are many factors. So that's just one example. Now, RFK Jr. is taking out chemicals out of food supply and mercury out of vaccines. And, I have a list of like 5 or 6 things that he's doing. Every single one of them is good. And when you take the mercury out of the vaccines, there are safer alternatives that are just as good. So, yeah, there's no I don't see why somebody would argue against anything that he's doing unless they're going to lose money because there's less drugs on the market or something. I'm not really sure. So
yeah, I mean, that's a pretty bold claim to say everything he's done is right on.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing in there that you would question in regards to his administration and what he's doing with Health and Human Services.
No, I'm happy with everything that he's doing. I mean, I'm following everything that he's doing. I'm listening to what he says, and I also listen to what the social media doctors are saying. And I mean, we can talk, point by point. And as a matter of fact, last month I flew to DC and I talked to him briefly. I talked to RFK Jr. I've seen him speak live last year for a couple hours. I followed the mahaaction.com movement and the videos that they put out. And the changes he's making are a long time coming. So yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what therapists should know in regards to just general health and wellness with their clients.
Oh, you got the greatest questions. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of therapists would understand that there is a role with diet and supplements, and I'm just going to say the word biochemistry, right? So if somebody has their biochemistry is off, their physiology is off, they're going to think in different ways that aren't really do not provide good survival benefits to them. See what I'm saying? So, and I do know a therapist in Ann Arbor, and she switched over to nutrition because she saw that connection and she just wanted to pursue that pathway. So, and so we have to keep that in mind and I have a really good friend in Ann Arbor, and he's been specializing in pain as a psychologist. So, and we talk all the time about, he says everything is psych, and I say everything is nutrition. And then we go back and forth like that, and we're both right. You know what I'm saying? Like, we both have these examples about how people get better based on the various therapies. So there's, that holistic viewpoint is worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah. I want to thank Headway for sponsoring this episode. As a group practice leader, you know that insurance and admin work can take up hours every week. Time you could be spending with clients or growing your team. Benefits reset season is the perfect opportunity to make improvements to those processes. That's why I personally recommend Headway for group practices. Headway lightens your load with fast and free insurance credentialing and admin support, plus offers competitive per-session rates and bi-weekly payments your team can count on. They're the only platform designed specifically for in-network group practices, and they work with therapy, psychiatric, and hybrid groups of all sizes. Thousands of group practice leaders use Headway to simplify insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. The best part, there's no subscription fees. Now's a great time to join. With Headway, you'll be helping more people get the care they deserve while supporting your team with more clients and a lighter admin load. Make next year the best year yet for your group practice. Head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe to book a tour. What are so take the average therapist. They're doing an intake with somebody for counseling, for their kids' ADHD, for marriage issues, whatever the thing is. What are things that you wish therapists would ask in their intake that point to nutrition, point towards things that are more broad? So, for example, I'm thinking about, I worked with a ton of angry kids. That was my main focus for a while, was like angry teenage boys. And these parents would come in and they'd say, oh, like Johnny can't pay attention. He keeps getting kicked out of school and all these things. And part of my intake would be, tell me about his typical eating. Typically it'd be very high in sugar, high in carbs. Tell me about his exercise. Very little exercise. Tell me about his sleep. Oh, he's on his screens till 10 o'clock, and then he has trouble falling asleep, and then has to get up early for the bus. And if we could switch even just one of those variables, let's get him an extra hour of sleep. Let's get him a little less sugar. Let's get him a little bit more movement. Magically, those ADHD symptoms would often be cut in half just from sleep, exercise, and diet. What are things like that you would say should just be part of every therapist's intake in regards to their discussion?
Well, everything that you gave an example about is perfect. And I see the diet as being very important. And so sugar and starch, right? Like if you have some kind of a bread-based pasta, whatever, grain-based product, starch would be just as bad as sugar for some people. And but then another question is, how much meat does the child eat? And so meat is the antidote to the poison known as sugar. And so, meat has protein to build the body and fat for the nervous system, and the brain isn't even fully developed until the age of 25. And so if somebody's on a low-fat diet, they're eating a ton of sugar and junk food, processed food. It's very destructive to the nervous system. And so 52% of the American diet is ultra-processed food for adults, and for children, it's like over 70% ultra-processed food. So that is terrible. But then you go to the doctor and they say, oh, meat is bad, which is not true. There's no science that shows that meat causes heart disease or cancer. There's a whole bunch of surveys and epidemiology, but that's not science. There's no control group there. So if there's a therapist that has some kind of a role in changing diet, and I see kids and I, tell the moms, like, give this kid as much meat as they want every single day, 3 times a day if they want it. And then watch their behavior just calm down. And the nervous system, the inflammation, the brain inflammation goes away. And of course, there's other factors, right? There's toxins and additives in food and stuff like that. So, but the diet is absolutely the most important piece to start with.
Yeah, when it comes to diet, I've heard all sorts of different things, like different types of body types, or there's different diets for different types of people. I've heard that philosophy. And it feels like the average person, like, what should I be just doing on my own versus working with a professional to figure out what's the best kind of dietary changes for myself?
Yeah, the best dietary changes would be based on how you feel. And so having said what I said about ultra-processed food being such a large percentage of our diet, it's safe to say that everybody should just cut that out as much as possible. And then what are you left with? You're left with meat, vegetables, fruit, grains, and that's kind of it. And then the question is, how much, number one, refined grains are not good for us, so cut that back and have whole grains. But what's really important is the meat and the vegetables and the fruit. So some people need a lot of meat and less plants, and other people need more plants and less meat. So that's where because when people see me, they've usually stopped all the junk food because they've seen a bunch of my videos on YouTube. So then I help them figure out, do you need more meat or less meat? Or do you need more plants or less plants? So that's kind of the simplicity. Like the blood type diet back from 20 plus years ago, Dr. Diadamo, he even doesn't use that diet anymore, right? And then there's diets for personalities or diets for kapha, like Indian philosophy, 6,000 years ago, Indian medicine. And I don't buy into those at all. I just stick with, okay, we're in America. We got too much junk food. We got to increase the meat for a lot of people and increase the plants for a lot of people and cut out the junk food and the grains.
Talk a little bit about junk food. If people haven't seen videos that you've done on that, what kind of junk food should we be cutting out? What should we label as junk food? Are there quote junk foods that actually you would say doesn't count as junk food? Just riff on junk food.
Yeah, thanks for that. Here's what junk food has. It's refined sugar and refined grains and then refined oils, also known as seed oils. And then sometimes extra added salt, but the salt is refined too. It's not like organic, it's not like Himalayan rock salt or Celtic sea salt, right? It's just sodium chloride with aluminum added. and iodine. So now that's the ingredients. Now with the macronutrients, junk food is very low protein. That's the biggest problem. So the rest of the macronutrients, which are fat and carbs, those are very high. So when you have a high carb, high fat, low protein food, you just end up eating it over and over and just keep eating it. You can't just have one bite. You got to keep going because your body wants protein. Protein is the most important macronutrient. Now your body will digest in order sugar, carbs, then fat, then protein. So it has to swim through, it's got to work through the carbs and fat, which is energy, and then it finally gets to the protein. So if somebody's eating a low protein diet, like even the Mediterranean diet, low protein, vegetarian diet, low protein, and then higher carbs and or fat. So the key is you eat more protein and you get satisfied. Satiety goes up. You end up eating less food. So, and there's one graphic that I have, and it's over 100 clinical trials, and the people that eat the least amount of protein end up eating more calories, more fat and carbs. People that eat the most amount of protein, they're more satisfied. They end up eating way less calories. We're talking a total of like 1,200, 1,300 calories per day, whereas the people on the junk food, low protein diet, they're eating like 2,700 calories per day. So that's the key. Get the macronutrient known as protein into your body as much as you can, and then you end up eating less food throughout the day, and you're happier, your body's happier, you're healthier.
Yeah. Now, when you think about specific foods, are there, you hear this term superfoods all the time, whether it's chia seeds or kale or, matcha tea, whatever the thing is, that people are trying to sell. What are some foods that you would say everybody should be having on some sort of regular basis? And what frequency would you say they should be having those foods?
Okay, so I'm gonna define that term superfoods in two different ways. The first way is a superfood. Let's say it's some kind of a green powder, which could be a combination of kale and throw in some greens, celery, cabbage, and then some herbs and fruit or whatever, and you'll buy this container of superfood, right? And that's good. I don't do that. I don't buy that stuff, but it can detox your body. It can supercharge your mitochondria and your cells, and people. Maybe there's fiber in there and they go to the bathroom more, and then their urine and their bowel movements smell weird because now they're detoxing and their energy goes up. And that's a good thing to do maybe once a day, or maybe if you do a more intensive multi-week detox program, I'm totally fine with that. Again, I don't personally do it myself, but another definition of superfood is what food can you have every single day that it does three things. Number one, it increases your energy, repairs your body, and keeps you alive. That superfood, in my opinion, is meat. Red meat especially. So, and liver. Now, this is something a lot of people don't talk about. I think the most important food for humanity is liver. That's number one. Number two is red. How's that for a superfood?
All right.
And again, now some people eat red meat and they feel terrible and they can't go to the bathroom. Okay, fine. That's not your superfood. Other people love more fish or chicken or whatever, but you got to find that food that really gives you many hours of energy, 6 hours of energy, as opposed to the green drink, or if you have a salad and you're good for 3 hours, only 3 hours. That's not good enough in my opinion. So if you end up eating 2 or 3 meals a day with no snacks, that's way healthier than eating 5 meals a day or even 3 meals with 2 or 3 snacks, right? Mm-hmm. When we eat more often, that keeps our insulin way up. You have to eat less often, and you do that by eating more fat and protein, more meat, keeps you more satisfied. And there's all kinds of science to back that up. I'm not just I just didn't create this off the cuff. There's tons of science behind that.
I mean, I hear a lot about the blue zone diet. You mentioned the Mediterranean diet of places where people routinely live over 100 years. And it seems like they say low meat, you hear low meat, vegetarian, having beans and things like that for your proteins. How does that fit into this? Would you say this is, I don't want to say in opposition, but, how does that fit into this?
Well, there's 5 blue zones, and I did a video about this, and I debunked every single one of those locations. So primarily, let's start with Okinawa. before World War II, they ate a lot of pigs. The word Okinawa means land of the pig eaters. So then World War II happened, and the island was wiped clear of all farming animals before the battle started on Okinawa, 1945. And then in 1947, nutrition researchers came in and say, oh, look at these Japanese on Okinawa. They live longer than everybody else, and they don't eat any meat. Well, in 1947, they didn't have any because they wiped out all the pigs in 1945. And then in Sardinia, and there's a place, that's the one right by Italy. I saw a video where these guys went there because, they're supposed to be the longest lived, and they were first served fried bacon. Bacon fat. They fried bacon fat. That was their first meal, was fried bacon fat. And then they had a celebration. They brought in pork ribs. So in that town, the reason why they live longer is because of pension fraud. So you have, like the grandfather, living in the house. He's 80 years old. He dies at the age of 85, but he's been getting a check from the government every month. The family does not report to the government that the grandfather died. So now 95, now he's 100, now he's 105 years old. No, they've just been getting free money for 20 years. That's why people think that the people in some of these blue zone areas live long is because of pension fraud. They don't live longer. They just don't tell the government that their grandfather died. Sorry to say it. That's the truth. That's what it is. It's been exposed in the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow. The last question I always have is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I would want them to know the importance of nutrition and diet. And when people are healthy biochemically and physiologically, everything gets better, including the way that the patient thinks and their emotions too, and their hormones too.
So awesome. If people want to connect with you, where should we send them?
My office website is thenutritionalhealingcenter.com. That's for patients. And then for doctors, I have training. It's called mvxtraining.com. M as in, it stands for Metabolic Vulnerability Index, MVX, so mvxtraining.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Well, one thing we value here is having people that can help us push into areas that we've not spent time researching. And so we think it's really important to have conversations that maybe challenge us, make us think differently, that help us say, I haven't heard that before. And then you spend that time to research it, to think about it, to dig in deeper. We want to be a place where we can have a variety of opinions and we're not just in our information silos. So excited to have this show today. We couldn't have done this show without our sponsor, Headway. Headway helps you run a group practice by accepting insurance. It's so overwhelming, doing the billing, credentialing, payroll. They help with all of that admin side. If you want to book a tour to learn more about Headway, just head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.